Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a breaking news report. There was a very serious explosion in the Beit Shemesh area in Israel. It's not very far from Jerusalem. Most of the residents there are Haredim, as they're known. That is, they are referred to as ultra-Orthodox. Well, just Orthodox Jews who act and live according to the Torah. It exploded on the factory grounds. And, well, let me tell you everything step by step. So, it was Saturday evening, May 16th, that is, after Shabbat had ended. The residents of Beit Shemesh, again, that's a city not far from Jerusalem, 2 months ago, an Iranian ballistic missile hit there, and it killed 9 people. They see a fireball on the horizon, a huge fireball, a flash, a column of smoke, a roar. The city, which hasn't finished mourning yet with fresh graves, freezes in shock. A few hours later, the authorities explain that it was a planned experiment at the Turmoil factory. It's a state-owned defense enterprise. They make engines there for the HEZ system, AFX reconnaissance satellites, combat missiles, and so on. Supposedly, it was a scheduled test. But it turns out that the municipality of Beit Shemesh wasn't warned at all. No call, no notification. But there is a mandatory procedure for a controlled explosion of this scale. The company is required to notify the local authorities, and then they decide whom to inform, when to inform, and how. But here something didn't work out. The theory about an Iranian missile is ruled out because the system known as Tseva Adam stayed silent. That's the alert system. It detects the launch, not the impact. The sirens didn't go off. So either the plant really conducted a test and violated all protocols, or something exploded. Not intentionally. The explanation about a scheduled experiment came later, as they say, after the fact. They say there are no casualties, no damage outside the perimeter, but that's exactly how it is. Big fire, big noise, zero consequences. Supposedly, in a week, everyone will forget about this explosion. They'll forget if there are no casualties, gentlemen. If there are, they won't. Well, all right. Since we're talking about Israel, there's another explosion. It's brewing there in Jerusalem, and it won't be possible to forget about it, so to speak. It doesn't come with any sirens either. In the Knesset, what the newspapers are still cautiously calling a coalition crisis. So, since we've already touched on it, let me tell you about the explosive developments there too. In reality, it's paralyzing. Danila tells the leaders of these ultra-Orthodox Haredi parties about the exemption bill. He won't be pushing for young people from their movements to be exempted from military service until the elections. The coalition is cracking over this issue. All coalition bills have been removed from the agenda. For the first time in 3 years, the Netanyahu government lacks a working majority. A self-dissolution bill was submitted. This is an attempt to, as they say, set the election date before the coalition simply falls apart on its own. The chief of the general staff, that's Yael Zamir, tells the deputies directly to their faces at a closed briefing, "Guys, the army could collapse if 14% of young people don't serve. If they don't start serving, it will be very difficult." And now it's time to explain who the Haredim are and why it's, well, I don't know, almost impossible to untangle this knot. So these are the ultra-Orthodox Jews, or simply put, Jews who follow the covenant written in the Torah. They make up about 13% of the population, but among young people, they account for more than 13%. They are the fastest-growing demographic group. Their birth rate is 6 to 7 children per family, while among other Israelis, it's about 2 or 2.5. They live in close-knit communities. In places like Bnei Brak, Mea Sherem, and Beit Shemesh, there are large Haredi communities. You know them by their black frock coats, side curls, hats. They speak Yiddish at home and only use Hebrew, let's say, for stores and for dealing with the state, and the state is secondary for them. Where did the exemption from the army come from? The thing is, in 1948, Ben-Gurion signed an agreement with the religious leaders of that time. Actually, it wasn't political at all. There were just 400 students who were studying the Torah in yeshivas, well, in schools, yes. And he exempted them from the draft to preserve the world of Torah, which had been devastated by the Holocaust. Only 400 people in total, and today tens of thousands are born every year. Demographics did its job. So why don't they join the service? It's both very simple and very complicated at the same time. So first, there are 4 reasons. I think 4. Let's count them. Theological. There's this concept, Torah study is his vocation. The study of the Torah, they believe, protects the people of Israel no less than the army. Not figuratively, they literally believe this. It's not something they made up. They are certain of it. Close the yeshivas and the people will cease to be a people. The army protects the body. The yeshiva protects the soul. When I say yeshivas, I mean the study of the Torah. They believe the soul is more important. Second, the social aspect. The army is the melting pot of secular Israel. Yes, mixed units, girls, television, internet, it's a secular environment there. Young Haredim who join the IDF are very likely not to return to their previous way of life. For the community, it's a loss. And the community is everything. The third thing is the authority of the rabbis. It means that it's not the 18-year-old guy who decides, but rather it's decided by the Gadol Hader. That is, the elder of the generation. Not exactly an elder, so to speak. The head, well, I don't know how to put it. Something like that. The main one decides, right? The great rabbi of the generation. That's it. If he said not to go, then you don't go. There's no personal choice here in our Western understanding. Fourth, political leverage. Shas and Agudat HaTorah are 2 parties that are part of the coalition. They are kingmakers in any right-wing coalition, so they say, yes, we will join the coalition, and Netanyahu became prime minister. If they don't join, everything is lost. The power goes to the left. Their only unyielding demand is the exemption. If you end the exemption for their people, you'll lose the coalition. Netanyahu knows this best. That's why he's stalling. And now the hardest part. Why won't they budge even when the country is on the brink? Even when the chief of staff says the army will collapse? A secular boy from a secular family comes back from the front in a coffin because they have a different frame of reference. For most Haredim, the state of Israel is a temporary structure. Their people, our people, are more than 3,000 years old, and they survived these millennia not with armies but with yeshivas. By studying the Torah, by studying God's law. States came and went. Rome, Spain, Poland, Germany, but the Torah remained. The logic is simple. What has survived for 2,000 years without an army will survive now as well. This is not cynicism. This is a deep conviction. You can argue with them, but that's something else. But they say, guys, you think this way and we think that way. We're not going to fight. But here's something that's hard not to notice. One group of citizens demands that another group of citizens die for a state in which the first group refuses even to serve. A secular guy from Kiryat Shmona goes to Gaza. His peer from Bnei Brak goes to a yeshiva and receives a scholarship from the same state. Both are citizens of the same country. There is an ancient rule that Hillel formulated 2,000 years before the creation of the state of Israel. Do not do to your neighbor what you do not want done to yourself. This, as Hillel said, is the whole law, the entire Torah. The rest is just commentary. Can you demand from your neighbor something that you absolutely refuse to do yourself? What will break first? Antonia's coalition, the patience of the secular half of the country, or the IDF itself, about which General Zamir said it could collapse?
Самое интересное, что
This has to happen. That very same leading rabbinic authority once told his children, it's time. If you want, next time we can discuss how the Haredi one works.